Hey everybody, this is Rob Banzer, the superintendent of the Northport-East Northport School District. We're just going to give a few seconds, a minute or so for people to log in and join us. All right, it looks like everybody's had a chance to join. Like I said, I just wanted to say welcome. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. I know that there are questions out there regarding our daily remote learners. And so we wanted to take some time today and give you an opportunity to answer some or get some, have some questions answered, and for us to give you a little bit more information. So I know Dr. Boschnack is with me, and we have some other administrators, and as they come on, they can introduce themselves. Dr. Boschnack, I don't know if you're going to share a screen first, or if you had something that you wanted to, just talk through before you shared.
Yes, I will share, and thank you. We are going to start with our secondary presentation, and so those of you parents that are here for elementary, that will begin about 4:30. So we'll start off with our secondary, and I will go through it. And Mr. Banzer, if you wanted to.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So again, throughout every presentation, I've been talking about these four guiding principles that really have guided us and been the pillars as we've developed our plan, and I've shared this with the community. I've shared it with our staff, our administration, but really these are our four goals. The first is health and safety. The second is to provide instructional opportunities. The third is ongoing communication, and the fourth is certainly flexibility. And again, as we've been planning and putting this whole thing together, really, as I said, health and safety has been our number one priority. Instructional opportunities, I just want to point out that we made a very specific choice to ensure that we, provide the program that we provide. Especially in terms of our secondary program, because we offer, extensive programming and course offerings, and we wanted to make sure that we're able to continue to do that, which our current plan allows us to do. And certainly communication, maintain the strong two-way communication, and I know, that's why we're here today. We've heard from you, we've heard from, many people in our community, and we want to continue to provide information as we work through this. And certainly the last is flexibility, that where we are today, things can change. And I've said this before, as we get different numbers, as we get new guidance, whatever it may be, more information may be coming our way, more data, if you will, and we will need to we have a plan, and we'll need to respond, should that be the case. So again, just a quick review of those four guiding principles that really have been with us since we've started this entire process. And now I'm going to turn it back over back to Dr. Boschnack.
Thank you. So the feedback that we received from parents is that you had requested some more clarity around specifically for remote learning. We do have a short presentation, and then also we do have some panelists, some individuals that are on the panel here for question and answers. So just to review synchronous and asynchronous for our remote learners, there will be both synchronous and asynchronous instruction. And to clarify that, synchronous is the live learning, the live interaction with the teacher and the student, requiring that everyone's online at the same time. Students in an asynchronous, students engage in course activities at any time, contributing at their own pace. And I just recently read an article that I thought I would share some of the highlights about asynchronous, because again, you know, I've had many conversations with parents, and a big concern is asynchronous learning when, you know, we really are looking at trying to have a balance of instructional strategies. And to share with you that asynchronous learning isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it can really enhance and engage student learning. And feedback from students, along with some of the written pieces that I have researched, is, you know, asynchronous learning is rooted in project-based learning, where students take more of a lead role. Some of the other benefits are that it's differentiated in the sense that, you know, we do have some of applications that we use. You probably have heard of these that teachers are using, like Pear Deck and Padlet and Screencastify. You know, they really allow students to go at their own pace. And also when teachers are taping themselves or lessons, that students are able to go back and listen to again if they needed to hear it again. So I just wanted to clarify that you know, asynchronous is not limited just to remote students. And in fact, some of the activities and the things that we're having students do and engage in really does support that student independence and practice. And I needed to say that just because I've heard a lot about parents nervous about asynchronous. But again, I do think that there needs to be both synchronous and asynchronous instruction for our students. I do want to review the model and the hybrid model, that when we are in hybrid as a district, as you can see, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, students in blue and gold go on every other day, and daily remote, obviously they are signing in, and we'll talk a little bit more about that following their schedule. They're signing in every day. And then Wednesday is the day that the teacher is having an abbreviated schedule with all of the classes. And I'll share that schedule with you as well. I know that I did send that out in a letter on Friday that you should have received those schedules. On Wednesday, we'll talk a little bit more, but that is a synchronous lesson. Whereas on the other days, your child will be signing in. The teacher will be taking attendance period by period. And at that time, they will either stay with the class, or they will do what's simply a check-in with the teacher and making sure that the student has their assignment for the day for the class. So, so during the hybrid model, which I just shared, students do have at the secondary level, they have their assigned teacher for each of their courses, and they follow that schedule. And just again, what I want to point out is that every period that student will sign in and the teacher will check in and take their attendance. During the district all remote, students will follow their schedule, and all students will be attending through a Google Meet using synchronous and asynchronous lessons. So the schedules, and again, this is a repeat for many of you, but our schedule is as follows. The periods are staying the same, whether the students are in class physically or the students are home, as our remote students will be. And then Wednesday is an abbreviated schedule where the periods are condensed to 20 to 25 minutes, and they will follow their period by period schedule. This is the schedule of our two middle schools. We have a 0 period, and they have periods 1 through 8. And this is the schedule that students will follow both in person and when they're home. Again, if I have a first period class and I go to Northport Middle School, I would make sure that I was signed on and ready to go by 9:07. We recommend 2 to 3 minutes ahead of time to sign on to be ready. The high school and high school schedule is a 9 period, and this begins at 8 o'clock. So again, students signing in a few minutes early to make sure that they're in and ready for their class. So the last schedule is a Wednesday, and that that is where all three schools are on the same schedule. So students will sign in, and our middle school students will have their zero period at 8 a.m. and the high school students will have their first period. Again, this is Wednesday when all students are remote, and then they will follow their schedule. We did want to keep this to the half-an-hour increments where students will know that 8 o'clock I sign on, 8:30, 9 o'clock, and so on. Just keeps it a little bit easier to remember, especially since it's a little bit of a different schedule on Wednesday. So just some frequently asked questions. You know, some of the questions that we're getting from parents are about music, art, and phys ed. And these classes will be conducted asynchronously. Again, there'll be check-ins and there'll be assignments provided. As I've said before, there may be some synchronous, but there will also be asynchronous instruction, and there'll be the check-ins every day. Another question that keeps coming up at the secondary level is about testing and how will testing be done. So it really does depend on the course. It depends on what the teacher is going to be using and what they're testing for. We also you know, need to take into consideration that some testing is formative. So the teacher's using that to help drive their instruction and information about the student's work to drive that instruction, where some testing is more summative, and that's those, you know, those assessments that are used for grading purposes and providing students feedback. So those types of tests and how we'll be doing that, it depends. For example, we use things like, and we have used things like Castle Learning for the teacher to be able to, it's a tool that teachers can quickly assess where students are. And those types of testing and what the students will be doing, the teachers will be informing students during these first couple of weeks of school. So that's just, you know, I know a lot of that is just an opportunity to kind of review. I think the biggest change from prior presentations is the check-in. So as I've stated, some of the concerns we had from parents were about, you know, my child not being able to see their teacher until Wednesdays, or have any interaction with their teacher until Wednesday. And that's not the case. We will be having our students sign in and check in with their teachers on a regular basis, following their schedules. And again, there will be time that, you know, students might need extra help, and they would make arrangements with their teachers if they needed to have that. So those are the review of the slides. And now I know that there are some questions, and I don't know if Ms. McLaughlin, if you wanted to read some of those questions.
Sure. There's a question asking if there was any attendance flexibility, especially for secondary students who may be sharing devices at home. So can we speak to the taking attendance component of the fully remote program?
Yeah.
I can, I'm sorry. No, just a couple of things on that. One, you know, we realize that that our computers for elementary students are on back order, and you know, it's unfortunate that they are. We ordered them as soon as we were able to, so we know that that's really the root cause of it. But certainly, you know, we're going to work with families again. You know, this is about flexibility. This is about understanding, and you know, that's certainly something that we will work on. We just that communication piece is key, and I think everybody understands the importance of keeping a schedule, you know, to the extent possible, and certainly, you know, technology limitations. We hope we have a plan to solve that. We had a plan to solve it, and we still do, and you know, within the upcoming months, we'll be able to solve it completely. But certainly there'll be flexibility and understanding regarding those types of situations.
The next question is a question about science labs. I believe Mr. Storch is on the call. Mr. Storch, how will high school students be graded on the lab portion of their science class?
Labs will continue to take place in one of three different modalities, if you will. We are, depending upon, for our remote learners, we will primarily provide equivalent labs in virtual format, whether they be animations, simulations, or on one of a number of different computer programs that we're learning to adapt. We're also looking creatively outside of the box to link some of our fully remote learners with our in-person learners in the other cohorts to work in tandem as a lab cohort to perhaps record the data that the student is able to take in school and work collaboratively on a type of hands-on lab investigation. Grading will continue as per our grading policy and secondary expectations, albeit with a great deal of flexibility and consideration. New York State Education Department is accepting virtual labs, but there will still be the same lab reports and write-ups. In addition to virtual lab activity for our remote learners, all learners, regardless of cohort, may participate rather than in a hands-on student-by-student activity, may participate in more of a teacher demonstration activity where the teacher or one or two students appropriately socially distanced conduct the lab at the front of the classroom that would be either recorded or in live lesson format for all of our remote learners. And so collectively, the class as a whole would collect data and then begin to create the requisite lab report.
Thank you. If you could elaborate a little bit, just is IB science going to be treated any differently, or will labs be conducted and graded in the same way? Or do you have any other info about IB or AP?
We don't have any update with regard to International Baccalaureate at this time. My understanding in advanced placement is that the College Board is looking to return to a more comprehensive examination from what they elected to do in the spring. I don't have any specifics in that regard. Suffice it to say that we are following the curriculum in a sequential order, because if and when reductions are made by the College Board, we want to make sure that we are in sync, as they did in the spring, where they let go of one or two units at the very end of the curriculum for any given AP course, whether it be in science or beyond. As far as IB is concerned, no changes at present. Of course, and depending upon the instructional model and how the fall proceeds, there could be changes in that regard. The internal assessments for the IB program, which largely require independent lab work, whether it be virtual or hands-on and minds-on with the students, will certainly take place to satisfy the requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Storch. Dr. Mergen, I believe you're on the call as well. The question is with regard to IB music. I have a number of music questions, but this first one, IB music, will that be all asynchronous?
Yes, that will be all asynchronous, but I believe Dr. Doyle will be allowing students to have the class taped so he can do his demonstrations and then share that recording of the class, of the lecture, and so on and so forth, with all the students that are home.
Thank you. And then a question about symphony orchestra. How will a fully remote student participate in symphony orchestra?
Well, our thoughts are the following. The conductor, which is Mrs. Janke, she can have a music stand with her, score, the orchestra score, and she can read the music and conduct from there. We'd have a second music stand adjacent to that, and then we can put a laptop on that with a camera. So the student at home could actually have their microphone on mute, and they can play along with the whole group. So that's our goal for moving forward with this year with regards to remote learners with all ensembles, incidentally, not just the orchestra.
Great. And Dr. Mergen,
Yes.
How about daily remote students participating in band and choir? Same idea?
Same idea. We're going to have them, if you will, again, have an adjacent laptop, which will be on a Google Meet, and then the student can watch along and sing along or play along in real time with the teacher and the other students, so they can hear the other students and they can participate 100%.
Thank you. Next question, a little bit more general. When you say sign in, do you mean sign in on Google Meets or checking Google Classroom?
Google Meet, yeah.
Okay.
And we will share those codes accordingly, yeah.
Right. So, and I think Dr. Boshnak, all of our remote students are going to sign in live with their teacher at the beginning of each period. That's what we mean when we say sign in.
Yes.
And then the teacher directs whether they stay on for a synchronous lesson or they direct students to an asynchronous activity. Is that correct?
Correct.
There are a couple of questions, and I'm not sure, Dana, if you would like to take this or somebody else. Will students be able to schedule meetings with their teachers if they feel like they need extra help? How would a remote student go about doing that?
I think, just to use their Google email, and they can email their teachers. Obviously teachers are going to want to help their students, and it's important to keep open communication. And also teachers will inform students about how they can access. For now, it would be email, but there may be other ways that the teacher communicates and sets up communication with their students.
Great. Thank you. Back to music. Dr. Mergen, how was the music department addressing the New York State guidelines on social distancing in choral and wind band?
Yes. It's not just from the New York State guidelines. We also have information from the American Choral Directors Association, which is the ACDA. And then we also have information from a number of aerosol studies. For example, the University of Colorado, Denver, on July 14th, released a study that gave us some information that guided how we are doing our rehearsals. In any case, what we're going to be doing with social distancing is the following. Orchestra students can be 6 feet from one another in a grid-like pattern. However, with band and choral students, we have to do 12 feet just to be extra careful that the spread, to prevent the spread of any disease and aerosols and so on and so forth. So 12 feet for band, 12 feet for chorus, 6 feet for orchestra.
Thank you. Question about music students who are fully remote. How would they go about getting their instruments?
Oh, they're going to coordinate that with their teachers via email. And we are doing stoop drops. Like, we're literally going to their stoop, putting the instrument down and so on and so forth. So we can help with that, no problem. Okay.
And then are the music changes for the middle school orchestra and chorus as well?
Same thing. We're doing 6 feet distancing for orchestra, 12 feet distancing for chorus and bands. The only difference here is that the teachers are going to have to do they may or may not have to do some rotating on an individual case-by-case basis, depending on the numbers. So, for example, if we can only fit 20 kids arbitrarily in a choral rehearsal area, they're going to have to accommodate that rehearsal and circle the kids in and out accordingly. Hopefully some of the kids will still be at home and they can do a 0-period rehearsal, for example, remotely, but we're going to be rotating those in and out of the day, as per like what we can fit with regards to the physical space.
Thank you. Next question is a general question.
Sure.
Having to do not so much music, Dr. Mergen, but just in general, if a child is going to Wilson Tech and they've been asked to provide an email account, the student is providing an email account that's different from the Northport.K12.NY account. Who do I get in touch with for the computer tech issue? And so I believe that answer is Judy Prosha's office. She is the Director of Technology in the Northport-East Northport School District, and you can find her number on the district's website.
Sure.
A general question as well, how will remote students receive their textbooks? Dr. Boshnak, maybe you can answer that.
Sure. We will make arrangements for students to be able to pick those up, and that information they will get from their teachers.
Thank you. The next question is, how will teachers be implementing 504 requirements for remote students? Will there be additional options for changing requirements or making amendments to the 504 early in the year if a student struggles with the remote lessons? I know Deborah Kinke is on the call. I don't know, Deb, if you want to respond to that.
If a student's having difficulty, if a student's having difficulty in the beginning of the year, parents or students should reach out to their teachers or to the building level psychologist and communicate those difficulties, and we will take it by case.
Oh, thank you. Dr. Mergen, how will the band teachers assess remote students? if they're only playing along, as you mentioned in the example earlier?
Oh, they're going to be asking students to send back video clips of them, excerpts of passages and excerpts of parts of their music and or lessons. So they will be providing asynchronous, very specific, clearly articulated commentary regarding how to make performance even better.
Thank you. Mr. Banzer, perhaps this question could be answered by you. I see that you're still on. If a remote student wants to participate safely in an outdoor school sport, will that be possible? Do we have guidance on that at this point?
Yes, they are permitted to be a part of it. Again, transportation, quite honestly, may be an issue, and that would be something that they would have to address as a family.
Thank you. This next question is specific to special education students. What kind of tutoring or extra help is available for a student who is struggling, again, with the remote learning? So I would just add to Deb Kinke's words of each student or parent should contact the teachers in that student schedule to make themselves available for extra help. Teachers will be providing extra help for all of their students, whether they are hybrid students, our elementary level, if we go fully in school, or our fully remote students as well. And it starts down at the individual teacher level. So students can reach out certainly if they're in the secondary schools, or parents on behalf of students at any grade level to the teacher to ask to set up something that might work. Is there any guidance on clubs for middle school, such as Kickline? And Kickline is a little bit of a hybrid where it's not, a sport or a club, same kind of thing. Mr. Banzer, just in general, guidance on clubs?
The first thing that comes to mind, I see that along the lines of dance, and right now we're going to be doing our clubs remotely. So I don't know exactly what can be worked out in that particular situation. I think that, perhaps the advisor, may have some thoughts around it, but we would also have to be very, very careful about social distancing, just like we do, with our dance classes.
And a question from a parent on just daily remote students. I know the answer to this, but Mr. Banzer, can daily remote students participate in other extracurricular activities and clubs?
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay. There are some questions surrounding the start date for fully remote students. And Dr. Boschnak, there are questions about why students are, if they're in the gold group, are starting on Friday versus Thursday. Can we just review who's starting when?
Sure. So Blue is starting on the first day of school on September 10th. And, part of the reason of doing that is really just easing into it. And that's been part of what we've been trying to do. It's very different for many people. And we just really wanted to give at least the opportunity for those students that will be home on the following day to be at least touch base, and the teacher to have the majority of students that are on the computer at home, they would have met. And I know we went back and forth on that, but this is where we landed, in that the Blue students will attend, and we won't have the remote, all of the remote, and also the Blue students would be attending on Friday. So it's Blue on the 10th and everyone on the 11th.
Thank you. Question about interaction among the students. In what ways will middle school daily remote students interact with each other and with their in-person peers? Will teachers create these opportunities, or will this only take place in virtual clubs?
Yeah, I mean, it's, there will be opportunities, somewhat in terms of the check-ins, and there will be opportunities, as was mentioned in the question, for clubs, and particularly if those check-ins lead to live synchronous opportunities. And that is a challenge, that is something that is a challenge, and that, we can certainly work with families. And I just want to say, if anybody, if there's a specific concern, if there's, some needs in terms of counseling, or, just kind of checking in, making sure everything is, if anybody has a concern in terms of that area, our counselors are certainly available.
Next question is with regard to Honor Society hours. So as Mr. Banzer mentioned, all of our clubs will be handled outside of school in an asynchronous manner. So our Honor Society advisors at the middle level and at the high school level will be in touch with all of our students about how they're going to log their hours this year. I would venture to say it will be a little different. However, I think the major tenants will be there, and the advisors will let the students know how to take care of that. Dr. Mergen, how will remote students be able to participate in musical theater class?
Hi again. If I understand correctly, Ms. Salisbury is going to be literally taping her classes and recording them so that the students can have an opportunity to also participate from home. There's going to be lots of different types of activities and exercises that will be recorded so the students can participate, again, from a remote location.
Thank you. There is a question about Wilson Tech students being able to navigate. So the question is pretty broad, but our Wilson Tech students, there is a counselor at Northport High School who oversees the Wilson Tech program. In addition, a child's guidance counselor is probably the first contact on any questions having to do with concerns about the student being able to manage, the travel to Wilson Tech or the program in Wilson Tech. So I would direct that parent to the student's guidance counselor to start. Should students sign into study hall? That's a great question. Dr. Boschnak, do you know the answer to that? I mean, there will be a teacher assigned to the study hall.
Right. You know what? I don't know the answer to that. I think that what they should do is check in on the first day and find out from their teacher that's in there what ways of signing in can they have, and if that is not something that the teacher plans on do, there might be another way for them to check in. So I would attend the first day.
Thank you. There is a question about, sorry, I lost it here. It's asked a number of times. I guess a concern about students who may feel uncomfortable because of family situations or because of, their perception of what their home looks like and having people be, kind of on camera and being able to see their background in their home. Can anybody speak to how we would handle a student who is uncomfortable or a parent who is uncomfortable on behalf of students with turning on the camera?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I think, in the spirit of that, and I know in our plan writing about students having their camera on, one of the things that we really wanted to make sure is we can, in a situation where we don't have a lot of control, we wanted to provide as many opportunities for engagement, and we know that as a facilitator and also as learners, when you do see faces and you do have that interaction, that can make the learning. And I know that that is something that has been brought up by parents, and certainly if that is something that's going to get in the way of the child learning, that just there needs to be a conversation and letting the teacher know. I think if you've ever facilitated before, and right now we're doing a presentation where we know that we all didn't have to be on, but if we were having a session where we were all interacting and engaging in a conversation, it's very hard to do when you can't see someone's face and you don't get as much out of it as a participant. So that was the nature of adding that, but certainly we do understand that there's certain individuals who'd rather not be on camera, and that just needs, again, it's going to be important to communicate those things and to make sure that the teacher's aware.
Thank you. Question perhaps for Mr. Howard. Is this webinar being taped, and will it be available for people who were unable to attend?
It is.
Yes, this is being taped.
Okay. Question again about remote access with IT issues, regarding Chromebooks and so on. So if a person has issues, obviously get in touch with the teacher. If you're having an issue while the class is going on, you're able to, the child is able to type in the sidebar and let the teacher know there's an issue. But all IT issues can go to Judy Procha's office. She's our Director of Technology, and it will be handled by Judy or a member of her staff.
There's also, Ms. McLaughlin, I just wanted to add to that. There's also a great link on our site. If you go on the tab that is says parents and students. And then underneath that is hybrid resources. That is a great tab. And if you have not visited that, you want to do that. So on the main page, look at parents and students, you click that, and then you go to the first line is hybrid resources. Those in there is also a place where you can ask if you are having problems or you need something, but also shares information about all of our applications and resources that we have.
Thank you. Next question, will remote students still have the opportunity to join the National Honor Society if they qualify after this quarter? And of course, the answer to that is yes, that all of the extracurricular programs and activities are available to all of our students, including our daily remote students. Will remote students need to sign in for every class, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday? If so, will they know if it's a synchronous or asynchronous class beforehand for consistency? Dr. Boschnack, you got that one?
I'm sorry. So I'm sorry, I was reading another question that came in. Can you?
Yeah, the question is, will remote students need to sign in for every class on Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays? I think the answer to that is yes. If
Yes.
so, will they know beforehand if it's synchronous or asynchronous?
They may not. It depends. You know, the teachers may set up a schedule with the students to inform them. But it also could be a case where some days it's synchronous and some days it is not synchronous. And so that will be communicated. The teacher will communicate that with their students.
Thank you. Somebody is suggesting, and you're not wrong, they thought 4:30 we were doing the K through 5 remote learning. So thank you for that reminder of the time. We will save these questions and look to answer them. Many of them are repeat questions. And then some of them that I'm reading are questions about, hey, can you say that again? My daughter or my son is blue, or my, you know, with this group or that group, and when do they start again? So if you don't have the answer to that question after this, you may want to listen to the webinar again. If not, just, you know, send an email to your child's principal, and, you know, at the building level, they'll be able to tell you exactly what's going on if you're having trouble deciphering the schedule.
So
The other thing is
if we can just, yeah, maybe just reiterate it one more time. So on Thursday, Dr. Boschnack, who's coming in on Thursday?
that would be our blue students coming in, and there will not be remote learning on that day.
Okay.
And then on Friday, it will be our gold students in person and everyone else remote, you know, gold and turquoise on Friday. Also on the main, in case you forget, on the main page, it does give you a link, and also under calendars, if you want to look ahead and, you know, look at there's calendars on there that include hybrid, or if your child is, goes to hybrid, there's also a schedule on there as well. But if you have not been on the website to check out the links, there's a lot of information on there that will help you.
Thank you, Mr. Banzer. There are a number of comments from parents thanking you and your team for all the work that you've done. And I get a general sense that they're very appreciative of this presentation as well.
Thank you, and thank you to them, and thank you for your support. You know, I know that this is, you know, that this has been quite a bit, and it truly has been a team effort. Dr. Boschnack, Mrs. McLaughlin, Mr. Howard, and the entire administrative team have really done a tremendous amount of work over the past few months. So I thank you for those comments on behalf of everybody.
So Dr. Boschnack, would you like to start the elementary portion of the presentation?
Yes, I will do that.
Thanks.
So if you are joining us or join us, we are going to share the elementary presentation. And I know it might be a little redundant if you have children at the secondary and elementary, because I do think Mr. Banzer, you want to start with the guiding principles?
Yes, thank you. And again, for those of you that might be staying, you know, there is a little redundancy here. For those of you that are just joined, when we started it with the secondary, and actually every single presentation, I've talked about these four guiding principles as we've moved through this entire planning process over the last few months. Obviously, health and safety has been our #1 priority. Number 2, I think, is really important, those instructional opportunities. And so we wanted to make sure that we maintained as many of those opportunities and just understood that there's quite a bit of flexibility. We continue to communicate with our community, with our staff, and have held a number of webinars to do that. And then flexibility. We anticipate, particularly at the elementary level, we anticipate some changes. And again, just know that those opportunities for your child, whether they end up staying remote or things change and there's an opportunity to come back, we want to be flexible to an extent, because sometimes there comes a point where we need to make decisions and kind of hold that line for a while. But those really are the 4 guiding principles that we followed and we really held on to throughout this entire planning process. And as I said, I've shared them at every single forum like this, just so people understand what has guided our thinking. And now I'm going to turn it back to Dr. Boschnak.
Sure. And again, just these first couple of slides are a repeat from our first presentation, reminding parents the difference between synchronous and asynchronous. When we were speaking of synchronous, that means that the students are engaged in activity in real time or live and interacting with the teacher and the students at a scheduled time. And asynchronous is when students are engaged in course activities that could be happening at their own pace. The last presentation I spoke about asynchronous learning. I know there's been a lot of many negative conversations about asynchronous, when really asynchronous is another way and another opportunity for students to learn and to help drive their instruction. It also helps students, a lot of the feedback we received from students, they like the fact that they could go and do the work at their own time or at their own pace. So there are some positive aspects of asynchronous learning. We also have purchased many ed tech products, applications that really are very engaging for students. And what we find is by trying different ways, and teachers have certainly done a lot of trainings to be able to provide students with multiple ways of learning and interactions using these tools of technology. So I'm going to explain, I'm sorry, let's go back. Just to clarify for the district hybrid model and the teachers. And I know that it can be a little bit confusing at the elementary level as far as who's my child's teacher. I know we sent out some information, and although it answered some questions, I think it opened up a lot of other questions. So I'm here to just share and try to help you to see exactly what we mean when we're talking about the different teachers that your child will have. Just so you're aware, we did break sections at the elementary level. We broke 13 sections to provide lower class sizes, and we also redeployed our AIS teachers as remote teachers, virtual teachers. And so in doing that, we had AIS teachers, both math and reading and writing, although they're certified at elementary level, they also have an expertise in a certain area. So in that decision making, we decided to have our remote students have 2 teachers, one that is supporting more in the area of reading and writing, and one in math. So and as you can see up in the left-hand corner, there's a yellow circle that indicates I'm talking about when elementary is in a hybrid model. So this is what you can expect for your child when your child's in a hybrid model, and that's now through the end of September. And students will have their brick and mortar or their in-building teacher. They will know who that is. And they will also have a teacher that teaches them math and a teacher that teaches reading and writing. And so, and this is during the hybrid model. We did want to keep a connection with the brick and mortar, the in-building teacher, just in case a family decides, I feel comfortable with how the school has opened, and I do want my child to go back into the classroom. This is an opportunity for them to have that connection throughout the month of September with their classroom teacher, because on Wednesdays, they will see their classroom teacher. And I'll explain a little bit more about the schedules, but just know we're talking about the hybrid model right now. So throughout the month of September, your child will have 3 teachers. So this shows what their schedule would look like. I know there were some questions because initially early on in our presentations, we talked about having live ELA and live math lessons every day, along with a morning meeting. What had changed is our desire to really put in place our teachers who have been teaching math and our teachers who have been teaching reading and writing, and put them in place for your child. So we did double periods of one or the other to make sure that we could do that. And we had enough teachers, enough sections for every child to have a 10-minute morning meeting and have a double period of ELA, which reading and writing. And then they would, as you can see here, we've coded synchronous lessons in blue. So what that means is if your child is, for example, a kindergartner, they will have a 10-minute morning meeting and a double period of reading and writing, which would mean 20 minutes of reading and writing. They would also get a 10-minute asynchronous lesson that will be sent out to them that they can work on. If your child is let's say a 5th grader, 3rd through 5th, they would get a 10-minute morning lesson and they would have a 40-minute reading and writing lesson. They would have a asynchronous math lesson, which would include something like a video to explain. It could be the teacher, it can be, it could be a teacher that they know, or it could be a teacher that is from their resource math book that would be taking them through their activity. And you can see that this would, next on Tuesday, there would be a double period of math, and they would have a asynchronous ELA. One of the things I want to point out though, because we are using the same classes and the same schedule for our remote learners, along with our hybrid blue or gold students, you noticed in your letter, it said that you would have a review. Because of the way that this cycles, your child will get an opportunity to have a morning meeting every day, but every other day there would be the teacher would have the same lesson, so the child can either stay on for a review or they can simply work on their assignment. So that is the one change based on making sure that we had synchronous and asynchronous instruction every day. And remote students will be with both blue and gold. So when they're sitting alongside blue students, for example, students that are in the blue cohort, they would receive an ELA, reading and writing lesson. And then the next day, they would also get a reading and writing lesson. They can choose to stay and have a reinforcement or reteach, or they can choose to leave at that time and work on their assignment. Just note that they're going to have morning meetings with a blue cohort, and the next time they would have a morning meeting with a gold cohort. Again, they can choose to stay for that lesson, or they can work on their assignment, and the teacher will prompt them to make that decision. Obviously, parents, you would be able to weigh in on if your child will be staying or if your child will be working on their assignment independently. On Wednesday, they will have a class with their brick and mortar teacher. And so that will be a synchronous morning meeting along with a synchronous math lesson and along with a synchronous ELA lesson as well. So a sample Wednesday schedule, which you can expect a full day will last about 2.5 hours total. So 8:05 in the morning, they will have their morning meeting. They will have a reading lesson. Again, this is a sample lesson, but tells you the components that would be in there. Your students would have movement breaks throughout. They would either have foundations or word study. They would have a science or a social studies lesson and writing. And sometimes the writing lesson and science or social studies might be integrated. There'll be a movement break, math lesson, and your child may be included in small groups on a rotating basis or one-on-one conferring. So this is what a typical Wednesday would look like for your child. As you can see, there's a green dot up here in the corner. This means I'm talking about your child's schedule while we are in an all in-person district-wide. So during this time, I'm going to slide this out of the way. During this time, your child will have 2 teachers. Just so you know and you're aware, across the district, we will have 2 sections in every grade level. So these 2 teachers, for example, they might be teachers of 1st grade. They would share 2 1st grade classrooms. And those classes would be across the district. And those teachers would, one teacher would either be your child's morning meeting teacher, and let's say they would be your math, science, social studies teacher. Or you might have your morning meeting teacher might be your reading, writing, and word study teacher. These teachers that you have, most likely your child will have at least one of the teachers that they already built a relationship and got to know in the first month of September. But these teachers will be, if you choose to be for the remainder of the time of this year, will be your child's teachers. They will not be connected with a classroom teacher at this point. So beginning at the start of September 29th, if we are all in as a district, these will be the 2 teachers that will be assigned to your child. So each student will attend a morning meeting, and then you will have your schedule as I've shared before, with each of the lessons being developmentally appropriate as far as the length. So for example, a class length of time for a kindergartner would be 10 minutes per subject area. And for 1st grade, it would be 10 minutes. For 2nd grade, it would be 15 minutes per subject area. For 3rd, 4th, and 5th, it would be 20 minutes per subject area. There will be opportunities for small group instruction. There'll be opportunities for one-on-one conferring. There will also be, the students will also have specials, which will be asynchronous. Those will be access to the students' Google Classroom. So these students will have a Google Classroom with their remote teachers and have access to the resources and how to access their specials in PE, art, music, library. So here again shows a sample lesson, or I'm sorry, day and what that would look like, which I've showed you before, would include that morning meeting, reading and writing, math, small group instruction, along with students that receive related services. We would be building those schedules to make sure that those related services are in as well. And obviously time for lunch, the specials would be in there as well, as I've spoken about. And this again is during, if we go all in person as far as a district in that model. So I'm going to move to some frequently asked questions, and then of course we will be answering the questions that you have. We do have some individuals on the panel that can answer in more depth if there's certain very specific questions you have, and we'll be doing that shortly. So how will music, art, and physical education be conducted? They will be conducted asynchronously. And there'll be projects that will be similar to some of the resources that students used in the spring. And also, you know, we did have a lot of success this summer with our arts program. And so those are what your students will access. And how will books and materials be handled? So we will be making, we will be providing each building with the materials that students need, and making sure that those things that students need are able to be picked up at the buildings, and that we'll be letting all of you know in the next couple of weeks. This slide I really wanted to share with you because this is connected to our website. If you go to students and parents on our website, you'll see it on the top link. Click students and parents, and at the top line of that link, it says hybrid resources. There are great resources in here, and it will also have a place where you can, if you don't have enough computers for your children that are remote, we want to make sure certainly that our remote students have priority at getting those computers. There is a form, a link in this resource. So again, go to the main page, hit students and parents, and then click to hybrid resources. In that link, you'll see that it says request Chromebooks, and you will be able to fill out that form. Make sure as you're filling out that form that you indicate that your child is a remote learner. And the other thing that we heard loud and clear is that parents really wanted more information about using Google Classroom. And one of the things that we did, and we've worked hard, and teachers have worked hard to make sure that their Google Classroom is set up in a consistent manner, so that across K-12, our Google Classrooms are structured in a way that parents and students will be able to access them in the same way, regardless of the teacher. So when is this? It's on the 16th of September from 8 to 9 p.m. And this is the link that you would go to, and you'll be able to not only go through and get a demonstration, but also be able to ask questions along the way. So that is all the information I have for you. And I know, Ms. McLaughlin, we have some questions.
We do have some questions that have been sent in during the presentation. So one question is the remote learning option for elementary students available throughout the school year?
Yes, for now, that is what we plan on.
And Dr. Boschnak, you mentioned that elementary students will be able to pick up their textbooks. They will, just to reiterate that, they will receive information from their building principals?
We will send out information as far as information out to the principals that they can share with their families, yes.
There is a question from a parent on behalf of two students. The question really asks a little bit about the Investigate program and what would that look like for a fully remote student?
Right, so right now we do plan on offering Investigate remotely. So they will have, you know, similar experience as they did in the spring. I did hear positive feedback about the teaching and learning that took place with Investigate, and they will be contacted by the teachers.
Thank you. The asynchronous instruction, will this be instruction developed by the student's own classroom teacher, or will it be, could it include a link to a YouTube video or some other resource?
So we have, and you know, Tara, if you want to speak specifically to that as far as what has been developed by the teachers.
Sure. So as of right now, for the first 2 weeks, all of the asynchronous lessons either are the teacher, you know, reading, or it's a video. There may be a component to it that would have something that we found, you know, on the web that, you know, another teacher did that was really great. But for the first 2 weeks, it's the majority of the lessons are from our own teachers.
Thank you. Dr. Boschnak, if all students don't return to school on September 29th, we know September 29th is a target date for a full in return. What would be the plan for the daily remote students? Would we continue in the schedule that we're in right now, or would things change?
That's a very good question. And we, we really want to maximize what we're able to offer our remote students. And so in our conversations, and Tara Geis, who works very closely with our instructional coordinators, we really would have to look at our plan and how we can modify and adjust, because what we would really like to have in place is opportunity for new synchronous instruction every day. And in order to do that, when we have students that are full back in class, we're able to do that because then we have the resources and we have the teachers to do that. So that would be really looking at and replanning and kind of going back to the drawing board. And that's something we are in the process of working on now. What are some other, just in case, because we know, we hear it all the time, different, schools are changing their plans based on the need. And so that's something that we're working on, a contingent plan.
Thank you. Deborah Kinky, if you could answer this question. This parent suggests that they're having difficulty finding the answer to how a child who has an IEP would receive services as a daily remote learner. Can we provide that answer?
Certainly. So all of the children who are daily remote learners are assigned to a virtual classroom and will participate in that classroom. In addition to that, they will receive specialized instruction for a period a day to reinforce the work that's being done in their virtual classroom.
And that information, Deb, how will that be communicated to parents once the teacher is put in place?
The teacher will communicate with the parents or the special ed department.
Great, thank you. Is it true that brick and mortar teachers will connect for the first time with daily remote students on Wednesday, September 16th, or is there an earlier time than next Wednesday?
For the students will be connecting, do you mean kindergarten, Irene? Are they?
No, it doesn't say kindergarten, but I think the question is, will there be any other introduction to the gen ed teacher, the Wednesday full classroom teacher before 9/16, September 16th, which is the first Wednesday that comes around after we have students report to school?
No, that is correct.
Okay. Is there a separate start time for Norwood Avenue School for the Wednesday schedule? The sample schedule started, it looked like the other 5 elementaries that start a little bit earlier.
So that that schedule, like I said, is the sample schedule, and that, as far as the Norwood alignment, Tara, do you have that information on Norwood?
Right now, during the hybrid portion, all of our remote students and then our hybrid students that are not in the building on that day, it will run from 8:05 to 2:25. So depending where your child has their live sessions. So as of right now, we're running, as far as Wednesdays go, I believe we'd be able to follow the Norwood schedule on those days because it's just Norwood students. The hybrid and remote, we have students from all across the district, which 5 out of the 6 schools follow that 8:05. So we're following that for the hybrid, but for Wednesdays, the Norwood classroom teachers could follow their times.
Thank you. How will parents get information regarding entering the Google Classrooms for the various teachers? How will parents be contacted?
So the students should be receiving information and the parents can check in their Google email.
You want me to?
Thank
You
you.
want to add to it? Sure.
Yeah. So right now, our hybrid teachers are working on rostering their Google Classrooms. Again, they're by grade level. So they started working on that today. So what they're going to do is they're going to add their students to their Google Classroom, whether it's by blue or gold. And if you have your child log in to their Google account, there will be an invite there that will say, you know, that we've invited you to 3rd grade blue reading and 3rd grade blue math. You just click the accept and you're in the Google Classroom. We're also working to try to see if we could email you with the Google Classroom code. The easiest way is just to log in and you'll see the invite. We're just trying to figure out the best way to get you the right Google Classroom code based off of blue or gold.
Thank you. If a student chooses to go back to school after October 30th, are they still in the same original class with their original brick and mortar teacher?
Yes, they would be.
Question about on the slide showing the breakdown schedule of a typical day. I believe it was a Wednesday, because the question is, what is planning/PD? So Wednesday afternoons, those last 2 periods of the day is shortened for students. You mentioned, Dr. Boschnack, about 2.5 hours for students. And then there was a couple of periods at the end of the day that listed planning or PD.
Right, that is the teacher at the rest of the day. The teacher will be working with grade levels, and that is the time that we have for teachers to collaborate and also do some of those videos and planning for the asynchronous instruction.
Thank you. Mr. Banzer, the question has to do with the selection of 2 weeks to slowly bring students into school, for all of our students to come back. Is that connected to the incubation period of COVID, or what's the significance of the 2 weeks?
You know, the incubation period, I mean, that was in the background, but not really the driving force. It was really just to make sure that there was time for students and staff to get comfortable with what we were doing in hybrid, to make sure, you know, to work out the many logistics with busing, the movement of people. And again, it was really just to kind of, you know, give it a good full 2 weeks. You know, we're going to do Thursday and Friday this week. That gives us some information. You know, we have a full week next week. That gives us some more information. And it really just allows us that time to, you know, just review everything, assess everything, and make sure that we're able to, you know, move forward with it in an effective manner.
Thank you. There are a number of questions that are pointing toward Wednesday as review days. And so first I'd like to clarify that, Dr. Boschnack, will new material be presented on the Wednesdays, or are they in fact review days? And then if, depending on the answer, are they optional for students?
So, so only the days that when I had mentioned and during this this hybrid time, they're review every other for the students that are all remote. But as far as the material, this is material that we have really reviewed and looked at the year prior, and knowing what students had missed in the spring, and also feedback from teachers and some of the essential learnings that we wanted to provide our students. So as far as it being optional, what is optional is those every other day when it's a repeat. But this is, you know, this is new learning. But also the other thing to keep in mind is we're beginning a new school year. And usually when you begin a new school year, especially for our young children, it's about routines and relationships. It's about building that classroom community. And I know that the teachers will spend time also on some of those protocols and making sure that students understand about hand washing and all the new protocols that we have, mask breaks and those things as well, that are happening on you know, Wednesdays, not necessarily mask breaks because students will be remote, but you know, reviewing some of those things that etiquette online and things that students that are new to students and what they can expect. So some of those procedures, protocols, definitely building relationships, and that's why we felt it important to do our morning meetings every morning. And you know, that is what we're looking at. And then I know that there's been questions about, well, will they be getting the same instruction as the students that are in brick and mortar? And what we really want to do is make sure that we have teachers aligned with their grade levels, and it may look a little different, but we do have the same curriculum. And although the pacing may be different in how we do that because it's full remote, the essential understandings, the learning, the skill development will be the same.
Thank you. This is a kindergarten question. Will the students be called on during, it does say asynchronous, but I'm not sure that makes me understand the question, but will students be called on to answer questions, or will the 10-minute lesson mostly be something that they listen to?
Go ahead, Tara.
So, no, so our kindergarten, just like all of our grade levels, will have 10 minutes of morning meeting where that includes them all greeting one another and sharing in an activity. Also sets up the class for what they're going to be learning that day, and typically at the beginning of the week for the week. Once we move into all in person, and so we enact the full remote, it will be interactive. So there will be some time, a little portion of time where the teacher's giving some direct instruction, and then there'll be some guided practice time where the kids are interacting virtually through the computer. And then there'll be time for them to go and work independently while the teacher is able to meet in small groups or do some one-on-one conferences with students throughout the week. So your child may not have that every day, but throughout the week, that would be our goal for teachers to be able to see all their students in small groups and some one-on-one conferences.
Thank you. Just a question, Dr. Boshnak, you mentioned that there were 2 sections of classes at each grade level who will be daily remote. The question is a little more specific. How many students will be in each daily remote class once all students return to school?
So it's approximately, it's an average class, so it ranges, but approximately 20 per class.
Okay, thanks.
It's actually a little bit less right now, Dr. Boshnak, just because the data keeps changing a little bit as parents move in and out. So it's a little bit, it's anywhere from about 15 to 17, I believe, is our highest right now. Again, that can change as parents change their mind, but that's where we stand right now.
Great, thank you. Dr. Mergen, there's a question about art, and I would say for all of our specials, maybe Dr. Mergen, you can answer art and music.
Sure.
The question is about what will the quality of the experience be, and how will students access any of the lessons for art and music?
Sure. So our goal is to, of course, deliver at the highest quality possible. We're in the process of ordering student kits of supplies, which are not going to be shareable. So whether or not you're in school or out of school, we're going to have Ziploc bags with art supplies, for example, and we'll have those readily available. We're going to probably do some porch drop-offs as well. And just going to take a little bit of time, like a week or 2, to get ourselves acclimated and moving forward. But we'll take care of that. And our goal is to deliver, high-level curriculum and instruction.
Great, thank you. Dr. Boshnak, will children have 2 different Google Classrooms, one for ELA and one for math? You mentioned before that there might be 2 different teachers, or will the teachers share one Google Classroom?
You have 2, right, Tara? Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, so in order to try to stay organized for the teachers and the students and the families, your child during the hybrid will have a Google Classroom for reading and a Google Classroom for math. So there'll be 2. Once we move to remote, because the 2 teachers on the grade level are going to be essentially team teaching, splitting by content area, there'll be able to be one Google Classroom.
Again, are there any optional days? I don't believe there are optional days, and I think that that's important. These review days, we're kind of getting stuck on the word review, and I understand that we're talking 2 different things. Dr. Boshnak, I don't get the sense that the material is going to be necessarily review material. I get the sense that all the students are going to be assessed to determine where the gaps are, so that they can kind of be brought up to speed, so we know how to meet each kid each student where he or she is at. But regardless, the question is the morning meeting on I'm going to say review days. Is the morning meeting on those days optional or is it mandatory?
I mean, you know, the choice is yours. You know, we really want to keep our students connected and have them meet new friends. And also, you know, knowing that some of those friends could be, you know, from their classroom that they might return to. So that's the thinking on that. If your family feels like it's better to do the every other day, you certainly can. I would communicate that with the teacher. But, you know, part of our thinking was really just keeping our students connected and being able to have that every day, touch base with them, be able to share, do a morning, do a greeting with their friends. So that would be something I would communicate with the teachers and let them know if you're choosing not to do the morning meeting.
Thank you. There's a question about what's the system for book shopping or rotation of books during remote learning?
So that's been a conversation that we've been having, that we've had over a superintendent's conference day. We certainly are going to have book shopping within, you know, in the building. And we are working with our school librarians in order to come up with the best plan possible for students to be able to request books that our librarians would then be able to package up for pickup for our remote students. In terms of the classroom libraries, that's not as feasible as it is with our building libraries, because those are all cataloged and easier to send out that way. But we are working on the exact plan on how you'd be able to request those books, and we'd be able to set them aside and have you pick them up.
Thank you. Question is about transitioning. Will the elementary students be able to transition from one project or one subject to another easily? Or is your sense that parents will need to help them set it up? For example, watching videos or signing on to various Google Classrooms?
So I think that in the beginning, right, it's going to take a little bit. But once we get into a little bit of a routine, I think that they'll be able to, you know, speaking as having a first grader myself, he was able to really navigate his Google Classroom and get to know the activities and expectations in regards to the different subject areas. So in the beginning, I would expect that for our kindergarten and first graders, they're going to need some support. As we get into the routine, I think that they'll be able to be fairly independent at it.
Thank you. Do we know the status of Chromebooks for elementary remote students?
Sure. You know, I had mentioned that on our website, if you go to the parent students link at the top of the website, you click on that and it will take you to hybrid resources, which is the top line. When you go into hybrid resources, there is a link in there for you to request a Chromebook. We have put a priority for our remote students. So you will go into the Google form, you will put your name and information, your email. I know there's some questions in here that, oh, I already requested a Chromebook and I haven't heard or I haven't received. It can't hurt to go in again, put your name in, and make sure that you're identifying your child as a remote learner. That will prompt us to make sure that there is priority for that remote learner. Obviously, you need to have a Chromebook if you're learning from home. So just make sure, even if you think I've already filled one out, we just updated the form to include an area for parents to identify if they are parents of remote learners. So make sure that you submit that.
Thank you. This question says, when elementary students go full in person at the end of September, who will be their daily remote teacher? Will it be an AIS instructor? Will that teacher be dedicated to the daily remote students only, or will they have a caseload of brick and mortar school students?
So they will be assigned 2 teachers, and they are AIS teachers, also certified in elementary education, but yes, they were AIS teachers. And they will be assigned to your child.
Thank you. This question speaks to, or is asking the difference between what we plan for this fall versus the last spring. And it reads that first grade hybrid students will be receiving 30 minutes of live instruction on remote days, and their specials will not be live. The question is, how is that different from what was presented last year in the spring? And the concern is that, it was presented differently in August. I'm not sure what the August presentation or the reference was. But can you speak to the 30 minutes of live instruction for first graders with specials remote?
So as we shared in the schedule, at minimum, there'll be the 30 minutes synchronous learning. And again, we looked at developmentally our students and screen time and what was appropriate. How it is different is we have, in the spring, there were some options. There were some children that were receiving synchronous learning, some students that were receiving asynchronous, some with a combination. We can assure you that your child will receive synchronous instruction and have a morning meeting every day with their teacher. They'll have live reading and writing lessons and math lessons and even small group lessons. So that is, the biggest change. As far as the specials, you remember our special area teachers will be teaching when all students are in, they will be in classrooms around the district teaching phys ed, music, and art. What we do have available is we're having our teachers create libraries of asynchronous instruction where they're able to provide our children with activities in ways that they can connect in those special areas. But we do not, during the time when we have our children are in school, there will not be synchronous special area classes. However, if we are all remote, all children are remote, then you can expect synchronous instruction from those special area teachers as well as your classroom teacher.
Thank you. The question is back to Chromebooks. Do they have to fill out the form for the Chromebooks? This parent thought they were already on order. So can we speak to the order and when we expect the full shipment in?
We did put our order in very early on. However, due to supply and demand, we are on hold and not expected to be getting that until the end of the semester, about the middle of the school year, possibly November, December. And so what we are doing is we are making sure that we put our remote students at the top priority. We do know that students will have to share, but we also know that it's going to be difficult for our remote learners. So I would suggest if you do not have a device for your child, I would suggest go in and fill the form out again on the webpage, going to parent student link, hit the hybrid resources, and you will see a way that you can go in. It takes literally 5 seconds to fill out the form, and very, very quick. And indicate that your child is a remote learner.
Thank you. A couple of questions about email accounts, passwords, and Google Classroom. So when will passwords be provided for new email accounts for the student portal? And can you reiterate the directions for parents to get into a student's Google Classroom?
So you are going to get an invite from the hybrid virtual teachers inviting your child into the 2 Google Classrooms. You can access that by logging in through ClassLink, which we now have, and the Google Classroom icon will be there. You would click on that, and then there would be an invite, and it will just say accept invite. And you just say accept, and then your child will be in the Google Classroom. An alternate way to do it would be to go on to Google, just enter in your child's email address, which if you're not quite sure what that is, you can access it actually through the parent portal, or you could reach out to the building. I actually had it written down here. I just don't want to tell you the wrong thing. And then just log right in. And again, you click on the Google Classroom and the invite will be there.
Thank you. The question is, how are evaluations going to be written if a child has up to 3 general curriculum teachers or general ed teachers? I think we're speaking about how will students be assessed and what will report cards look like?
So during the hybrid version, they are going to have 3 teachers. Again, we're just seeing that for a couple of weeks. The assessments are going to be taking place, during the one-on-one conferring time and the small group time that we have set up for once we go all back in. Certainly the work that the students will be submitting through the Google Classroom during the hybrid will start to give the teachers a sense of where students are, but that the real assessment will begin once we go all in and we have our remote teachers that are dedicated just to those grade level classrooms.
The question is with regard to the difference between a student who attends in school, school in person. They'll have approximately a 6-hour day. Remote students, particularly in the lower grades, will have significantly less time face-to-face with teachers. The question is, what are kids in the classroom doing that remote kids are not doing? This question comes from a parent of a new kindergartner.
So, something that we have to consider is what's developmentally appropriate for our students in screen time. So that's just one of the differences in regards to being in the building versus being remote. So all of our students, all of our kindergarten students, whether they're remote or they're in the building, are going to receive direct instruction, live instruction in reading, writing, foundations, math, and science or social studies. In addition to that, we have provided that time for small group work and one-on-one conferring. So honestly, I don't see much of a difference. It's just the way that we don't think it's realistic to keep kindergartners or first graders on the screen for 6 hours at a time. So we're building in the direct instruction, some independent practice, some small group, movement breaks, on and off, to try to keep it fresh and keep them engaged.
Thank you. During the hybrid model, how many days a week will our children sign on if they're fully remote?
So they will sign on, hopefully every day, to participate in that morning meeting. So the morning meeting is an opportunity for us to connect with our students, let them know that we care, we want to see them, they have a place to be, and they're a part of their class. They will be with half their class on one day, and then the other half, they will stick with their in-building section. So if they were in my class, they would, in Mrs. Geis's class, they would have half my kids on one day and the other half that they'd get to participate in that morning meeting with, which is greeting and getting to know one another. So they will sign on every day. And once they complete the morning meeting, that's when they have a choice to stay on, to hear that lesson again, to get some review or reteach, or they can log off at that point and access the new asynchronous activity that has been placed in the Google Classroom for our remote learners.
Thank you. There's still some confusion about a student. So let me just read this question directly. It says, I'm a little confused. Do students have to go online every day if they are remote? I was under the impression that my child is only online gold days and then Wednesday. Do the children going to school in person have to go online every day when they aren't in school? So that's a lot in that question. I think you have to, do a hybrid for somebody who's a gold student, and then maybe do a full remote. I think we're getting stuck a little bit there.
Right. So, so this, what we wanted to, who our targeted audience tonight was for parents of fully remote students. So we've been speaking about fully remote. So if your child is a gold student in the hybrid, they would be attending on gold days and home on those blue days, learning remotely, and also on Wednesdays. So the remote students are signing in every day. And again, just to reiterate, we had structured it so that students who are fully remote may sign on every day and have a morning meeting. They will have a double ELA, a double reading and writing period, or a double math. And then every other day, it is going to be a review. What I mean by that will be the same lesson, because your student, if they're fully remote, will be with blue children, and then the next day will be with gold. So that same lesson for math, for example, will be given to to the gold students as well as the blue. Your child can choose to leave after the morning meeting or stay and get a live review, and the teacher will give them that choice to do that.
Question is, will there be an additional date scheduled for the Google Classroom demonstration if this parent is unable to attend, or will it be videoed and posted?
Yes, we will do both. We will we will record it and post it, and we will also be providing, additional parent sessions, because we really do want to support parents. There's other apps and things that we use that I think is very helpful for parents to be aware of what, how to use those, and also the purpose of them and helping their child navigate.
This question may be pertinent to elementary. It is a review question from a secondary parent. How are students supposed to check in? Are invitations to all of their classes on their Google Classroom accounts?
Yes, they will be on their classroom account. They will have, they also will be sent, and I know Tara just shared this, they will be sent by their teachers, the invite to the link, which they can connect on. And once they have their Google Classroom link, all of their resources and links will be right there in their Google Classroom.
Thank you. We already talked about the approximate class size for fully remote at the elementary level. Ms. Geis, I believe you mentioned somewhere between 15 and 17 is where it looks right about now. The question is, will fully remote class lists and information be distributed so remote students can connect with each other if desired?
Absolutely. Yep. We are working on rostering all of those right now, and our hopes is to get that out sooner than later. We're certainly working on it.
Great. There continues to be some questions about signing in and so on. There's a question that reads, the time that was sent out in emails for our kids to attend live sessions per day. Not sure the rest of that sentence might have been cut off. Are the meeting times in September, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, the times also for the morning meetings? If not, what time does every student need to sign in for the morning meeting?
Sure. So the time that you were sent in your letter is the time that you should be on. The morning meeting is built into that time. So if I was a second grader and I had to get on at 10, it would go from 10 to 10:40. The first 10 to 15 minutes will include that morning meeting. So as long as you just follow the time specified in your letter, and it's the same every day.
Okay, a lot of questions about that. So go back to that letter, check out the times, make sure you're logging on to the Google Classroom at that time.
Right, morning meeting is built in.
Just to add to that, I think what having conversations with parents, some of the confusion was it may have been an afternoon meeting, and so they're questioning why is it called a morning meeting. So it is called a morning meeting. That's just what we call it. It's a responsive classroom approach to connecting our students, and so I can understand the confusion. So even if it's in the afternoon, it is considered our morning meeting. You could call it your afternoon meeting if you want with your child.
This question, please remind me, or a statement, please remind me when parents of remote students will have an opportunity to opt back in. Is it still quarterly?
That's a really good question, because we want to provide flexibility. We certainly understand. One of the things that I've said early on is we really want to connect the students with their classroom teacher, because it is our goal to have our students back in. We've provided some flexibility with that deadline. However, that has caused constant change, which when we're changing our rosters repeatedly and planning for that slows us down on the process of really providing information for parents that they want right away. So with that said, we are allowing parents, if they, at the end of this month and before the 29th, they say they want their child to come back in, we certainly will honor that. And then we would like to try as best as possible to stick to those dates that we sent out, which would be the end of October was the next date. So certainly if you want your child back in and you want to let us know that, it is very helpful for us to know and to plan accordingly to come back before that September 29th. And then you have another date that that we really did align with the buses. It was really about the transportation because they absolutely need to know. So we've had some last minute changes, and although we could change our rosters, we weren't able to get those parents transportation right away. So just if you could please make those decisions and let us know, and then we can stick to those deadlines that I spoke about.
A number of questions are coming in about when parents can expect to get final schedules or invitations into the Google Classrooms. So Ms. Geis, I heard you say that teachers were working on them today. I would assume they will continue to work on rostering their classes for our fully remote students, and those things should be out, those invitations should be out by tomorrow.
So the hybrid virtual classrooms will be completely rostered by September 10th. So you should be able to log in and accept your invite and see the Google Classrooms. The full remote, we are working on the full remote classrooms with the 2 dedicated teachers. That is something I'm working on and just trying to be really thoughtful about how we put them together in terms of if there's multiple remote children from a school to try to, at a grade level, to try to put them together to create some of those connections. So that is work that I'm hopeful that will be done this week. And so you'll have not only the hybrid class list in Google Classroom, but you'll also receive some information regarding the full remote classroom that will begin on September 29th.
Thank you. There's a statement and then a question. I'm not sure if I know the answer to this question. Thank you for addressing these questions. What's the professional text that the administrators all read this summer that informed these decisions? Mr. Banzer, I'm sure, could speak to all of the work that we've read from the CDC and the New York State Education Department, et cetera. I'm not sure if this is in relation to instructional decisions that we're speaking of, but maybe Mr. Banzer, if you could, for our parents, talk a little bit about the guidance that we've been looking at to create this process.
You know,
Sure.
and I can add to that too, Mr. Banzer.
Go ahead then.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, part of our process, we had 100, if not a little bit more than 100 individuals involved in this planning process. And we had, as far as the instructional side, we had instructional teams both at the secondary and elementary. And their charge was to develop these plans if we were all in, if we were remote or we were hybrid. And part of that was researching best practice. You know, for example, looking at what is the recommended time for students and as far as screen time. You know, we're getting some statements here, some people in the questions stating that they're really pleased because of the districts that they work in, for example, just comparing the work that has been done. And I have to say, I do put the credit on the committees and all of the work that they put into hours and hours of work into helping to put forward a recommendation. So at each level, whether it was, you know, the safety protocols and our committees that worked on that, we had committees that worked on, you know, developing in looking at assessment and grading and expectations for students. And so we really broke it down into all aspects and had a lot of brains and a lot of minds and a lot of research around what is best for our district and our community. So quite a bit of time. And then those recommendations came up, you know, through administration where final decisions were made.
Yep. Thank you, Dana. Thank you for filling that in. And on, I believe it was July 13th, we received a guidance document from the New York State Department of Health through the governor. It was something that we were anxiously anticipating. Prior to that, we had already set up planning groups and committees, as Dr. Boschnack had indicated, and that guidance came out and basically said that we needed to have options for remote, potentially hybrid, and full in person. So we had to basically plan for everything. And then, and it wasn't just that everybody would necessarily be in one of those, but then if, you know, the option for those that, while the district may be hybrid or full in person, there are people that are uncomfortable, people that have certain situations at home, health situations at home, that they felt it was best for them to remain at home. So it was with all of those guidelines that we had to follow. In addition, as we were putting our plan together, not only did we receive that guidance, we also received, we had to make sure that we were in compliance with over close to 100 assurances. So that as we developed our plan, we had to make sure that we met the assurances that we were required to sign off on from the state and the Department of Health. So, so there was CDC guidance, there was New York State Department of Health guidance, there's New York State Education Department guidance, there were executive orders from the governor. So just from a myriad of places in terms of setting up the structure. And then as Dr. Boschnak indicated, the work that was done by the committee.
Thank you. Dr. Mergen, how are band and orchestra being handled at the elementary level, and will daily remote students be able to attend lessons?
Sure, great question, and thank you for asking. Basically, what we're looking to do is the following. We are looking to maintain the independence of the different cohorts, each of the classes. So, for example, in the old days, we may have 2 flute players from Miss Smith's class, maybe another flute player from Mr. Jones's class, and yet another flute player from Mr. Smith's class, and we would call them all down and give them 1 flute lesson. So what we've done is we've researched the new curriculum that we're going to be providing for the kids. It's called Essential Elements, and what it allows us to do is the following. We can have just Mrs. Smith's band kids come down. They could be all different instruments, or many different types of instruments. We can teach them simultaneously. So the idea is not just flute players at once, but rather flute, clarinet, trumpet, trombone, and so on and so forth. We can teach all those kids simultaneously with a new method series, and that way we can keep the kids separated, via their cohorts. So that's our goal moving forward with the instrumental program and lessons.
Thank you. General question. How many students will be in the classrooms? Sorry, not full in. How many students will be in the classrooms during the hybrid model at the start of the school year? And then when we move all students in, what's the cap on an elementary class?
So one of the things that we did just to establish a baseline is we added a number of sections, over a dozen sections throughout our elementary schools. So the sections are really low. They'll vary by section, by classroom by classroom. But in essence, the way that we kind of account for it, every class is assigned a number of students. Some of those students are now deciding to go full remote. So some of those students are associated with the roster, but we know that they're not going to be there every day. And then on any given day, it's roughly half of those students. So if we have a classroom of, let's say, 16, and we had, let's say 2 to 4 students in that class decided to go fully remote, now you're talking somewhere between 14 or 12. So there could be somewhere between 6 and 8 students in any one class physically in the classroom during the hybrid piece. So again, we really made a concerted effort to start this year that we would lower class sizes to the extent possible, and we did so by adding 12 teachers to that. And but on any given day for the next few weeks, we're talking somewhere between maybe 10 to 6 in a classroom. So that just gives you a general outline.
Thank you. There are a number of questions regarding students not remembering how to get into their own email, passcodes for Google accounts, and where's the logon information. So for parents, students who have forgotten, what do we tell them?
Yeah, I want to answer that question because I'm noticing that we will send something out to everyone to help them with that process, because I'm seeing there's quite a few questions. We did send out information at the secondary level, and I know that there was going to be information sent out to our new students in our kindergarten. But for those of you who may not remember, we will send out information to everyone and give you the access to being able to get your passwords. The other thing I see that there's a question that I didn't fully answer a question. I just want to make sure I answer it. There was a question about if the teachers who will have the remote students will also be responsible for brick and mortar students. And the answer is no. Those remote classroom teachers will be solely responsible for those remote students only.
Okay, thank you. The last couple of questions. There is a question that says, can you explain the difference between backpack and classroom? I don't know if I understand the backpack piece. Tara, you're muted.
I almost made it through the whole thing without doing that. I think they might be referring to the electronic backpack link that is on the elementary websites, which is typically where principals post school-wide notices. The Google Classroom is going to be specific to your child's classroom teacher, whether that be the hybrid teachers and then the in-building teacher for the first couple of weeks, or your full remote teacher as of September 29th. I know that Dr. Boschnak did show in the presentation where on the district website, underneath the parent tab, there is a link there that is referred to the Northport-East Northport hybrid resources. On there, it gives you a lot of videos to help you navigate Google Classroom, but it also tells you how to access your students' email, your children's email or their student email. So that's another place you can go until Dr. Boschnak sends out that additional information that she was just referring to.
Thanks. There are a number of questions that remain that are very, very specific to individual students and families. So we would ask that you bring those questions to your building principal or the appropriate staff member at the building level, so they can work with you through the situations that you are presenting. Lastly, Mr. Banzer, there are a number of thank yous on here as well from our elementary parents, very, very similar to what you received from the secondary folks. There's one in particular that is striking. It reads, as a fellow high school educator in another district, you all did an amazing job. If the public only knew the mind-blowing myriad of issues, questions, etc. you needed to contemplate and find answers for, they would collapse. Bravo, thank you, and be well. It was just beautifully written and greatly appreciated.
Well, thank you. And again, thanks to everybody who, excuse me, that was my mother. I just want to thank everybody who, I know it's bad when you don't answer the phone and it's your mother. But again, I just want to thank everybody for being here today. And again, really, this was a true team effort. The people you see on the screen and many that you don't, just tremendous amount of effort and hours and just stick with itness until we get it to a place. And we appreciate the questions, we appreciate the input, and we're looking forward to making this a successful year. We're going to continue to monitor this situation, obviously. We're excited about having our students start on Thursday and Friday this week, and really, starting to move through this situation with all the challenges that we faced and will face going forward. But again, it truly was a team effort, and I appreciate you taking the time to be here today, and we wish you a great year. Thank you.